Breaking news is flooding social media right now, and if you're receiving SSI or SSDI benefits, you need to hear this immediately. A petition demanding $2,700 fourth stimulus checks specifically for Social Security recipients has just exploded to over 500,000 signatures in less than 48 hours, and Senate offices are reportedly being bombarded with calls from constituents demanding action. But here's what nobody is telling you about what's really happening behind the scenes, and why this could either be the financial lifeline millions of Americans desperately need, or another political promise that leads nowhere. If you want to stay ahead of every Social Security update, stimulus news, and benefit change that could put money directly in your pocket, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because we break down complex government policies into information you can actually use, and we never sugarcoat the truth about what's really possible versus what's just political theater. The petition that's causing this massive stir was started by senior advocacy groups who argue that Social Security recipients have been systematically left behind in economic recovery efforts, while businesses received billions in PPP loans and wealthy individuals benefited from tax breaks. The argument goes that those living on fixed incomes of $800 to $1,200 per month have watched their purchasing power evaporate as inflation has driven up the cost of everything from groceries to prescription medications. The $2,700 figure isn't random either. It's calculated based on the cumulative loss of purchasing power that SSI and SSDI recipients have experienced since the last stimulus payment was distributed in 2021. What makes this petition different from the dozens of others that have circulated over the past few years is the speed at which it's gaining momentum and the specific economic data being used to support the request. The organizers have compiled research showing that Social Security recipients spend nearly 100% of any additional income they receive, making them ideal candidates for economic stimulus from a pure economic multiplier perspective. When someone receiving $900 per month in SSI gets an additional $2,700, that money immediately goes back into the economy through rent, food, utilities, and medical expenses, creating what economists call a high-velocity money effect. But here's where things get complicated, and this is crucial information that most news outlets aren't explaining clearly. The petition is specifically targeting Senate leadership, but the reality is that stimulus payments must originate in the House of Representatives according to constitutional requirements for spending bills. This means that even if every single senator signed on to this proposal tomorrow, the actual legislative process would still need to begin in the House, where Republicans currently hold a narrow majority and have shown little appetite for additional spending measures that aren't offset by cuts elsewhere. The political dynamics around this petition reveal some fascinating tensions within both parties. Progressive Democrats see this as an opportunity to fulfill campaign promises about supporting vulnerable populations while also stimulating economic growth. Moderate Democrats are concerned about the fiscal implications and how additional spending might affect inflation, which has already been a significant political liability. Republicans are largely opposed to what they characterize as unnecessary government spending, but some are facing pressure from constituents in their districts who would benefit from such payments. What's particularly interesting is how this petition is framing the economic argument. Rather than simply asking for help for struggling individuals, the organizers are presenting data showing that Social Security recipients represent one of the most economically efficient demographics for stimulus spending. Unlike higher-income individuals who might save stimulus money or use it to pay down debt, SSI and SSDI recipients almost universe. However, there are significant obstacles that the petition doesn't address directly. The current fiscal environment is dramatically different from 2020 and 2021 when previous stimulus payments were approved. Federal debt levels have increased substantially, interest rates are higher, and there's less bipartisan consensus about the need for economic intervention. Additionally, recent inflation data has made many policymakers cautious about injecting additional money into the economy, even if it's targeted at demographics that spend rather than save. The $2,700 amount itself deserves scrutiny because it's larger than any previous stimulus payment, including the $1,200, $600, and $1,400 payments that were distributed during the pandemic. The petition justifies this amount by arguing that Social Security recipients were excluded from many other forms of economic relief, including enhanced unemployment benefits, expanded child tax credits, and small business assistance programs. Essentially, they're arguing that this larger payment represents catch-up relief for benefits that other Americans received but Social Security recipients did not. From a purely mathematical perspective, the cost of providing $2,700 to approximately 70 million Social Security recipients would be roughly $189 billion, which is substantial but not unprecedented given the scale of previous stimulus measures. The economic impact could be significant because this demographic has such high marginal propensity to consume, meaning they spend rather than save additional income. What's really driving the explosive growth of this petition appears to be widespread frustration among Social Security recipients who feel forgotten by recent economic policies. While stock markets have reached record highs and unemployment has remained relatively low, people living on fixed incomes have experienced a grinding erosion of their standard of living as everyday costs have increased faster than Social Security cost of living adjustments. The petition has also gained traction because it's being promoted through social media channels and advocacy organizations that have direct connections to millions of Social Security recipients. Unlike previous petitions that relied primarily on organic sharing, this campaign appears to have coordinated outreach through senior centers, disability advocacy groups, and online communities where Social Security recipients gather to share information about benefits and policy changes. But here's what you need to understand about the realistic prospects for this petition actually resulting in legislation, even if it reaches 1 million signatures, which seems likely given current growth trends. Converting online activism into actual legislative action requires navigating complex political realities. The petition creates pressure and demonstrates public interest, but it doesn't change the fundamental math of getting 218 House votes and 60 Senate votes for a spending measure that would cost nearly $200 billion. The most likely scenario for any form of targeted Social Security recipient relief would be inclusion in a larger legislative package, possibly as part of budget negotiations or a broader economic package. This could result in a smaller payment amount or additional eligibility restrictions, but it would represent the most viable path forward given current political constraints. What makes this situation particularly worth watching is how it reflects broader tensions about economic inequality and the adequacy of Social Security benefits. The petition isn't just asking for temporary relief, it's highlighting systemic issues with how fixed-income Americans are affected by economic policies designed primarily around employment and business support. Whether this petition ultimately succeeds or fails, it's already serving as a powerful demonstration of how Social Security recipients can organize and advocate for their interests. The speed of signature growth and the attention it's receiving from media outlets and political offices suggests that this demographic has more political influence than is often recognized. As we move forward through 2025 and toward the 2026 midterm elections, expect Social Security and senior issues to play an increasingly prominent role in political discussions, regardless of what happens with this specific petition.